Good evening, friends, and welcome to the June 1, 2020 edition of Cafe Muse Online. We are holding this reading during these very sad days, hoping to present a positive light in an otherwise dark time for our country. I am Henry Crawford, and tonight I'll be co-hosting this evening with Susan Oakey and Renee Garrity. Before I begin, I want to thank the WordWorks and everyone on the Cafe Muse team and every one of you for joining us here tonight. Tonight, we are very pleased to present Tommye Blount and Molly Spencer. And in a few minutes, I'll bring up Susan, who will introduce Tommye Blount. And after that, Renee will introduce Molly Spencer. And at the end, we're going to have a Q&A session with your questions. So let's get a few things out of the way. First, and most importantly, if you want to purchase the books of these poets, please click on the green button below, and you'll be directed to a site where you can purchase the books. If you'd like to see more information about the poets, just click on the tab in the upper left that says Tommye Blount and Molly Spencer. And of course, if you'd like to follow all of our WordWorks readings, and we'd love you to do that, just click on the Follow tab in the upper right. If you want to ask a question, and we'd like to see lots of questions tonight, if you want to ask a question of either of our poets, you can click on the Ask a Question button at the bottom of the screen. Please do so during the readings, and you can read other people's questions, and you can vote on the questions. You can vote on the ones that you want to hear most. And so at the end, we'll try to take a few of them, or at least as many as time permits. Also, remember that you are not on camera, so you don't have to worry about how you're dressed or what room of the house you're in or mics or cameras or any of that. But please make use of the lively chat feature, which we have over on the right side of your screen, to comment on the performances. A couple more things. Please join us on July 6th when Cafe Muse Online will feature poets Tracy Brimhall and our own Birgie Sennhauser. And please come back for our next Poets versus the Pandemic series, which will happen on Wednesday, June 10, 2020, which will feature poet Francisco Aragon reading from his new book, After Reuben. Finally, please remember, if you want to come back to this reading, just click on the same link that you used to get here, and because it will be archived permanently. And now I shall bring Susan Oakey right up here to our Crowdcast stage. Hi, Susan. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm fine, Henry. How are you?
I am very good, and I will now disappear into cyberspace as you introduce Tommye Blount.
All right. Greetings, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. Tommye Blount and I overlapped as students in the MFA program for writers at Warren Wilson College, where everybody knew Tommye as a quiet, unassuming person and an astonishing poet. Tonight, he was to have read for us live during a book tour for his new collection, Fantasia for the Man in Blue. The pandemic, of course, demolished those plans, but I'm so happy that he's here with us tonight to read online. Fantasia for the Man in Blue fearlessly presents experiences of being a man among men, a brother, a son, a boy, a lover, black, gay, white, straight, lonely, generous, angry, frightened, violent. It does so through the use of elegy, anti-elegy, narrative, and persona. But whatever form a poem takes, on every page there is insight and empathy. Blount is an artist who uses intelligence, imagination, and craft to open his speakers to the reader. Sorry, I'm having scrolling problems. Even when a given poem's material is scary or disturbing. Like this poet, the title figure, the man in blue, is a shapeshifter, a threatening white cop in a couple of poems, while in another poem, the falling body of Icarus in a Matisse painting. The long poem, My God, Lick Him Clean, is a mind-bending ekphrastic work inspired by a painting by Peter Williams, an African-American artist who painted a young, white neo-Nazi in a style that renders the portrait both unsettling and racially ambiguous. It's on the cover of Blount's new book. Launched by this visual image, the poet probes the emotional roots of violence by one race against another, Whose face is this, the speaker asks, and continues, in the portrait of the subject, always the likeness of its maker. There is no difference between you and me. Poet A. Van Jordan writes, Tommye Blount captures the tension between what horrifies us as a nation and what we crave to soothe the pain. Saying what needs to be heard at a time when there's so much chatter among us, Blount manages to cut through the din by directing us to the beauty that remains. Born and raised in Detroit, Blount is the author of Fantasia for the Man in Blue, Four-Way Books, 2020, and What Are We Not For, Full City Press, 2016. A Cave Canem alumnus and holder of an MFA in poetry from Warren Wilson College, he has received scholarships and fellowships from Kresge Arts in Detroit and Loaf Writers Conference. His work has appeared in Poetry, Ninth Letter, Ecotone, New England Review, Magma, Third Coast, Indiana Review, Transition Magazine, Cherry Tree, The Offing, and elsewhere. He lives in Novi, Michigan. I'm so delighted to welcome my friend, poet Tommye Blount.
Thank you, Susan. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for that fantastic introduction. It's been difficult to say the least. So to help me get through this reading, I'm going to invite an ancestor into my home, into this virtual room. This is the second section of Essex Hempfield's The Sorrow, which is one of my favorite poems. When I die, honey child, my angels will be tall, black drag queens. I will eat their stockings as they fling them into the blue shadows of dawn. I will suck their purple lips to anoint my mouth for the utterance of prayers. My witness will have to answer to go-go music. Dancing and sweat will be required at my funeral. Someone will have to answer the mail I leave, the messages on my phone service. Someone else will have to tend to the aching that drove me to seek soul. Everything different tests my faith. I have stood in places where the absence of light allowed me to live longer, while at the same time it rendered me blind. I struggled against plagues, plots, pressure, paranoia. Everyone wants a price for my living. When I die, my angels, immaculate, black diva drag queens, all of them sequined and seductive. Some of them will come back to haunt you. I promise, honey child. So I'm going to read the title poems. Yeah, I'm going to read the title poems. You know, I was going back and forth about whether or not I wanted to read them, but I think I need to read them in order to, I don't know why. Fantasia for the Man in Blue. You know good and well you can't be out here in the dark morning to take in the moon, full as the bowl of light attached to this police cruiser. Like a grayed elephant shoots air through its trunk before it charges off to safety from a mouse in one of those old black and white cartoons, you shriek in a debutante's pitch, even though there are reports you are as large as an elephant. Car thefts in the area. The man in blue explains after he asks, "Where do you think you're going?" It's unusual to see your kind, walking at this hour. You're an elephant who's really just a man sweating away in a mascot's costume. You mumble in a dress. You fumble for an address that isn't your address, but mine. Oh, you've done it now. Don't say anything else. Let me take over this body, soften what letters will bend. I am a poet after all. Don't worry, you'll see. He'll wish us a good morning and let us go after he bends us over the black hood. Fantasia for the Man in Blue. It's the great blue hero. Elephant trunk hung, chewing the set and every man in it like the big star. A convincing replica in the distance video promises. He flashes before he flashes his long nightstick as hustlers and car thieves who know I want as much as you do now, touching yourself, pretending the man in blue would bend over backwards to protect you from the boredom of your unremarkable penis. You get off on this, even when it isn't on screen in front of you, all in your head. Let's say you're a criminal. You fit the description. You did everything of which you were accused. Now, say there's a deal on the table, then imagine that. You are on the table. And like evidence, a bargain, if you let him, he swallows you, promises to forget the whole thing. Say you let him cuff you. Every address ending in sir, the way your father taught you. Fantasia for the Man in Blue. You know that painting, right? Matisse's Icarus. No, not so much a body to speak of, a darker suggestion, an absence of a body, an outline surrounded in blue. That's you. What you were, I can see fitting the description if you were not denied a face, arms perhaps tattooed with a lover's name, a mother's face, some evidence of having a life. And of your manhood. Where is it? Either way, the blue has its way with you. Its constellation of small destructions all around you. Shell casings. No, not so much the shell. Just the evidence of the shell. A bright wound where a heart can't possibly exist. Fantasia for the Man in Blue. What should you have expected? It's still dark at this hour. There is a star in the crest of his shield, too small to shield a thing like the heart. You're like that painting, that Matisse painting of Icarus, you almost say, before you realize it's all wrong. The colors all mixed up in your head. No, you are the disobedient one, littering the spangled blue night with your dark tear. It's wrong to say this, you know, but the officer is so hot, you want to kiss him and run your fingers through his blonde hair. Sigh. Just look at the way the moon catches his metal. He shimmers like a handsome pistol. Okay. For this next one, I'm gonna read the notes because I screw it up when I try and paraphrase. When Marion Jones, a white housewife, opened the door to see Reuben Stacy, a homeless black tenant farmer, asking for food and water, she screamed and claimed the man tried to attack her. On July 19th, 1935, in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, photographs were taken of Stacy's resultant hanging. How sweet this great land. The white girl is arrested by joy, or is it hunger? Whatever is there bubbling in her perfect little body, she has been taught to subdue it. Crossed, her arms make an X, like a contract signature. Her wrists rest against her skirt's pleats, almost as if I were a lecherous savage and not the co-heir of this moment. My nose brushes the photograph. What must her hands smell like? Not an odd question when I consider the dangers of hunger. Ah, yes, there it is. The scent too loud for even history to shush. Sweet relish, sharp chives, crush of dill, sandwiched under her nails. A sandwich some black child's mother made. How sweet this great land of nostalgia, when there were fewer houses than there were trees. Safe. She looks as if she might hum. So happy to be in the cool shade of the man swinging from his branch. Phonophobia. Body cam footage, the crackle and chirp of it anyway. I'm within earshot. I know what is about to happen again. Click the news site's window close. Open my window to geese barking a path across the man-made pond. The pond plopped near a quiet suburban lane. One flops over, pops up with a spray of grass in its beak. It turns its bearded head away to the road's new pitch. An ice cream truck blares the white noise of an old American song. The tune whips the air in my mouth into soft vanilla soft serve. Once, back in Detroit, my brother sent me out to shout for the Mr. Softy truck. 2 cones. So I said, "Little brother, where's the other cone? You should have 2. He always starts, and upon hearing the beat, I chime in with, "So then I said, I had 2, but yours went splat on the ground. I just started slurping away on the other cone." None of this ever truly rings a bell for me. I never remember, yet want to remember. So I rattle off the learned script so that he can laugh. Then I can laugh harder, which makes him laugh even harder until we both bark and crack up with tears streaming down our faces. We are so happy then. The guffaws, the chuckles, just one big snicker. We can't stop laughing. We laugh until we can't breathe. You'd think we are dying. You know what? Let's do this poem. This is a new-ish poem. I haven't been writing, but this is like a poem that's like new to the world-ish. Yeah. In honor of Pride. Remember when you let him climb you? That white boy rode you all through Pride. You wanted to take a rest. You should have dropped him then, but you kept it up as he slapped your ass and pet your head. Then you felt your body grow larger. You smelled like manure. Your teeth grew larger. You felt your eyes bulge and shift to the sides of your long face as he yelled, "Giddy up, Zaddy," then waved his white tank in the air when you surrendered. Not brave. You brayed. Then the man on your back shouted as he brayed your face into the ground, "Do not resist." It happened in broad daylight. The man straddled your broad back. Your mug shot into the asphalt. Your face was not quite animal anymore, but not quite human. He called you Mon Amour, then called you back to bed. Off came his costume. He threw the plastic pistol on the nightstand. You told him you loved him. He said he loved you all laid out like this. It made him feel so safe, proud. This will be my last poem. I'm going to say thank you again to Susan for reaching out to me and not giving up on me. And thank you, Cafe Muse, for doing this. And thank you, Henry, for setting all this up. And I can't wait to hear Molly. I love Molly's work so much. Yeah, so I will end with, I never read this poem. I'll end with this one. Well, no, I'll end with this one. The Hunger of Luther Vandross. Honey, what would a thinner man know of hunger? I mean to be forever, for always in hunger. When my stomach has had enough, when my body goes quiet, I let my mouth take over. It's a calling, this hunger to sing for a love I'm too ashamed to want for myself. So I practice. The pitch has to be right to sing the hunger of other lovers. A take on a take, a rendition no one has heard before. With this voice, I wed the lives of others. A hunger to set the mood. I make them turn the lights off, turn them on. A gift, this first instrument of hunger, this tenor. I can feel it in my body, all 300 pounds of me. You're never lonely when you're a man who knows hunger like I do, as big as two men holding on so tight that you would think there is only one. There are two of me, both of us hungry for the stage. Look at how the spotlight searches for me. It can't keep up. They chant my name, want more of me. Who am I to let them starve? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tommye. You breathe such life into your poetry, and it was quite an experience to hear you. Thank you so much. And now I'm going to bring Renee Garrity up onto our stage, if I can find her in the sea of people down here. Renee, let's get you up here. Tommye. And so we'll catch up with you, Tommye, at the end of the show if we've got some questions, okay?
Okay.
See you later.
Bye.
Hey, good evening.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey.
Yeah, I think I can hear you. All right,
good.
Renee, go for it and introduce Molly Spencer.
I will. Thank you, Henry. First of all, I want to say thank you, Tommye, for such a powerful and difficult reading. It was truly wonderful. I'm here to introduce our second reader tonight, Molly Spencer. And I'm here to tell you that not only is her first collection being discussed tonight, but she's got another one coming out within the year. 2 prize-winning collections in 1 year. Wow. Her debut collection, In the House, won the 2019 Brittingham Prize. And her second collection, Relic and the Plum, forthcoming in the fall, won the 2019 Crab Orchard competition. Her poems have appeared in many journals, including Blackbird, the New England Review, Ploughshares, and Prairie Schooner. She teaches at the University of Michigan's Gerald Ford School of Public Policy, and she's the poetry editor at the Rumpus. In Molly's first collection, In the House, she writes about things and events that are common to all of us: relationships, nature, death, moving, and even watching your neighbor out the window. Her poems examine them through conversation, but they're not conversation using words. They're conversations through descriptions or interactions. For example, in Conversation with a Lace Thong and Car Keys, I love that title, there's a woman standing at the sink in a lace thong. A man rushes into the house and searches for his keys and never notices the woman standing at the sink in her lace thong. She herself is distracted. Molly describes an emotional distance in this poem without words, and thereby leaves it open for so many possibilities of interaction. I've been told that I have a tendency to get a bit lengthy when I introduce a poet, so I'm just going to go straight to it and tell you a few of the many reasons that I love her poetry and that make her poetry so outstanding. Every poet is told, show it, don't tell it. Molly shows it. Her imagery and description capture the essence of a moment or an emotion. It makes you pause, think about the image, and say, yeah, it really does feel like that. Or, I never thought of it that way. Poets are also told, don't summarize it. Not only does Molly not summarize her poems, she leaves the ending so open in the air for the reader to decide where the poem will lead, just as the poem above. Amazingly, though, she brings all of these elements together in my favorite poem, Because I Want to Give Them More Than a Small Gray Stone. In this poem, she takes her children to see the girl with the pearl earring, or the pearl in her ear. They find the background is different in reality than it is at home. It's green instead of black. She tells them of things that she loved that are not the same. She tells them of things she knows and fears. And because of this knowledge, she gives her children a book in which the way to save themselves is to choose a different ending. And then she says, I leave it to them to read it for themselves. And you'll want to do just that after you listen to Molly read from her collection tonight. Please welcome Molly Spencer.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Renee. And I want to say thank you to Tommye for your incredible poems, and to Susan and Renee and Henry and the Wordworks and the whole Cafe Muse team. I'm just really honored and grateful to be here tonight in such good company. And I also want to thank our audience, all of you, for tuning in tonight from, I can tell by some of the names I recognize, all over the country. Thank you for making a space for poetry tonight. Before I turn to the poems, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the moment that our country once again finds itself in, and express support for those who have been protesting and working in other ways to dismantle the centuries of racism and police violence in this country. So I just want to check with Henry. I am getting a lot of feedback. I want to make sure that the audio is okay for our audience.
Yeah, can you turn it down a little bit? I think it's your microphone, and it's probably feedbacking with your speakers there, but I've got all the other sound has been killed. So try to turn your microphone down if you can.
Okay. So it's okay on the other end?
We're getting a little bit of feedback, and the best thing to do then is to turn down your microphone and make sure that that's away from where the speakers are.
Okay, is this any better?
Oh, yeah, no, not really.
Headphones.
I will get headphones. I will be right back. So sorry. Okay, how's that?
It's better.
Much better, much better. And this is not the first time we've seen this kind of phenomena, so don't feel bad. But
Okay.
go ahead.
I'm so sorry for the interruption. So I'm going to just start on the poems now. And I feel like I need to read Conversation with Lace Thong and Car Keys after that introduction. And also because I've never read it before at a reading. So here it is. Conversation with Lace Thong and Car Keys. She is in the kitchen, bent over, in a blue lace thong when he comes through the door, blows by her. Forgot my keys, he says. She says, oh. She is standing up now, having found what she was looking for. She forgets now what it was. Down the hall, the thunk of a drawer, opening, the broken music of his hands, running over its contents. Did you find them? She says, yes, he says, good, she says. Blows back through the kitchen. The keys jangle their little found song, gotta go. He says, bye, she says, bye. To a door already latched shut, she says, to the ringing quiet, I guess I'll get dressed now. It was seam tape she needed. No, it was a pair of shears. She slides into her jeans, then she snips the loose thread at the crotch. And I think I'll also read, because I want to give them more than the small gray stone. Because I want to give them more than the small gray stone of my sorrow. I take them to see the traveling exhibit, the girl with the pearl on her ear. I say, look, the painted ground we thought was black is green. Because there is a fence I loved once, a fence they no longer remember. I tell them it was shadow boxed, silvered, worn soft by long years of storm. In a dream of hands folding clothes into a suitcase, there is always a stranger adrift in the hall. In winter, a dreamed of house is almost as good as a real one. Same with fire. Because I know this, I give them a book in which the way to save yourself is to choose a different ending. I leave them to read it for themselves. Oh, child who sits on the landing of my heart, the stairs are just another way of saying, shall we go down? Of the girl we saw framed and hung on the wall, I'm told she won't come this way again. Of the fence that it falls is falling. These are the stores I've gathered for you, like tight fists of apples, globes of fat squash. Given time, they will ripen, grow sweet, become something for you to get by on. I think I'll go next to another little poem about how hard it can be to explain the world to our children. And this is called As If Life Can Go On As It Has. The earth has all these endings. The sparrows drop, the lilies lie down in a ditch. In the daylight, a 2-lane highway confirms all its nouns. Dregs of an orchard, barn dissolving, tract homes conjured from forsaken fields. I am in a kitchen's heavy afternoon light. As if life can go on as it has, I sing. I stir a pungent sauce, the exact shade of love or fear. The children pepper me with whys and hows. The stove fan swallows what rises. Just before the reading, Tommye and Susan and Henry and I were chatting a little bit. And Tommye mentioned the disclosures poems that are a series in If the House. And those poems came from the experience of selling a home in California. And as with any home sale, you have to fill out a seller's disclosure document. And I just was so kind of fascinated and horrified, actually, by the language of these disclosures documents that I started writing disclosures poems. So that's where these poems come from. And I'm going to read disclosures. If you are aware of any nuisance animals, such as crows, chickens, or barking dogs. The crows will go on gathering inside you. The crows will repeat and repeat their hooked songs. When in the interior, who amidst the birches, why, deadfall, why? The crows will creak and rasp like hinges. You'll wait to days that stain your hands, bits of char from a beach fire, some forgotten summer, days that, like the crows, want answers, if in the understory, where the front crosses over the sky above you. If you have untied your heart from the blood knot and left the strings loose and desultory, now what? The crows will follow you home, wanting to know, are you happy now? Are you happy? Now that you've lost your faith in the slope of the roof, now that it's snowing again, and the whole world pretends to soften. The crows will preside over your quiet ritual of diminishment, calling out sharp threats. If by rafter, you mean rib. If the moan of a northing train is what's left to listen to. If it's a different train now, but just as forlorn. Now that the only scrape of a shovel over the walk before daylight is your scrape. Now that the blade in your hands is the blade that you asked for. I'm going to read a little bit of a longer poem now. And this poem came out of the experience of standing in my kitchen here in Metro Detroit and listening on NPR to the coverage of the fall of Aleppo in December of 2016. And in one of the sections, in section 4, the last 2 lines are taken from that broadcast and were NPR quoting tweets from people who were tweeting out of Aleppo as Assad's forces advanced. So I want to give that credit to the people there. This is interior with a woman peeling oranges, snapping beans. 1. They are not in season. Nothing is in season. It's December. The oranges I couldn't resist at the market, their extravagant glow trucked in. The green beans, trucked in, extravagant, from the Latin for outside of and to roam. I set the beans aside in the sink for rinsing, then pull away the pliant skin of one orange, flesh broken, bright and sweet. 2. Out the kitchen window, excuse me, I'm going to start over. 2. Out the kitchen window, winter has had the last word with the songbirds and the gardens. Night begins to drag over the sky. While I complain about the city not plowing my street after a foot of snow, the glaciers calve. The water rusts just north of here. The rebels' stronghold fails. Awful things keep happening everywhere, but not to me. 3. It is winter there too. I have seen the photos of the little girl in her fuchsia coat, whose color reminds me of the bougainvillea that grew outside my last kitchen window, spilled bloom against the plain-song snow. I think her mother's bones must heave in their sockets, a pendulum slowing one way, then the other toward the curve of a tiny apricot cheek, then toward the open mouth of the mute and patient earth. 4. A city unroofed, ungardened, unbodied. A city becomes a ruin of a city, dust of brick and dust of bone, ash of skin, sift of last page turning. And people send their epitaphs skyward, prophetic, bits and bytes pinging down through the star charts, blinking on a small screen I've set nearby on the counter. I pick it up to call the city about the snowed-in street and help us. They are dancing on our bodies. 5. It is not enough to want to be good. Not enough to wish I deserved the pitch of a roof overhead, a quiet street. Tonight, the whole world stands by, and I stand by my sink, snapping off the tapered ends of beans I'll feed to my children, 6:30 sharp, then snapping them in half. Tell me, how can I not think of finger bones? And in half again. 6. Like small suns, the oranges flare in their bowl on the counter. It is easy enough to salt the beans with my unearned tears. Easy enough to remember holding each orange in my hand at the market saying, "These are as big as a baby's head," putting them in a plastic bag, only 5 for $1. I'm also going to read the poem that Renee referenced in her introduction about watching my neighbor out the window, which I am guilty as charged of doing. I like to think I'm a caring neighbor rather than a nosy neighbor. This poem is called Frank Next Door, and it borrows some from Shakespeare's Hamlet and also some biblical language, so you might hear some phrases that sound familiar to you. This is Frank Next Door. The dishes are done, the counter wiped, the children are all at school. The window is open to a mild morning breeze, construction noise, the many wars and storms that pound the earth. But what I need to know, Frank Next Door, is why have you torn out your lawn? Also, am I my neighbor's keeper? And why do we now say 3 times instead of thrice, as in thrice you have bent your 89 years, your stooped back over the same tired patch of grass between our houses. 3 times you have pulled it out by hand. Frank, I'm up early. I know it's you I hear at 6 a.m. with the scritch of your rake and the occasional hollow thunk of one of my boys' balls that you've thrown back over to our side of the fence. Thank you, Frank. But can I ask, why did you not stop with the grass? Why have you tipped and unpotted all your leggy geraniums, which I had come to admire for their infrequent orange blooms? Was it you who came upon Ophelia's sewing? Fierce and uncertain, your shirt unbuttoned, hair raised like a sail from sleep or madness. And Frank, how is Barbara? It's been months since I've seen her on your porch in her blue house dress. Do you know, Frank, how hard it is to explain the concept of house dress to today's kids? I confess, I believed myself up to the task. I of sweep and mop, I of apron, of the homemade cupcakes I brought to my daughter's class, about which a little girl asked, "Can't you afford real cupcakes?" Of house dress, I explained, a simple garment, a row of buttons, often faded, never mind. But Frank, about your camellia, that too, despite its great red eyes that open twice a year, Frank, the glossy leaves, the smooth layered buds before they flower, how fastened they are, how pleasing in their closeness. And what means this, my neighbor, that you have left the bindweed climbing over our shared fence? That squatter, that stowaway creeper has staked its claim as the worst weed in California. Frank, what I'm asking is, are you shuffling off your mortal coral? Should I start bringing casseroles? Is it so long a life? Did you know it's also called creeping Jenny, bellbind, sheepbind, and cornbind? Don't you love such words? Frank next door, is it wrong for me to find the bindweed oddly beautiful? Its scrawny persistence, all its trailing arms and legs, the weak white faces of its blooms as they open to show a curved swirl of blood at their throats. Just going to read one more poem. This one comes from my next book, which has undergone a title change and is now under the title Hinge. And just to let you know, I didn't write these books one right after another. I actually wrote Hinge first when my kids were fairly little, and now they're high schoolers and in college. So it's been a little while between the actual writing of those books. They just happened to be coming out at the same time. Anyway, this is The Day Has Brought You Everything You Need, which is a line I borrowed from Joanna Klink. The day has brought you everything you need. Shapes of your life climbing up out of night, a doorway, a stack of books, and all the gaps that dreams leave. How finally the bird had nested. How somehow you were the bird. A side yard where peaches redden, like girls becoming women, a key that opens a door to a house where you live, where the floorboards hold, where the roof has not flown off and left you, and water falls from faucets every time you turn them on. You hardly know what to do with these riches. See yourself as a softness turning with the earth. See the children in their beds, breathing, metronomic. Your parents are alive. Your husband was not on the lost plane. It will rain all day next Wednesday. The day has brought itself to you like an offering, has stretched its muslin light across the stars. The stars are still there, waiting. Night will come again, a mercy. The infection went away, the jasmine's blooming, Yesterday, Mary called. Her voice opened doors all through you. It is the season of stone fruit, of prodigal flesh come home, whose warmth unfolds down the length of a tender trap, the body you've learned to live in. Its subtle bars, a window scuffed with years and small storms, the way it lets the light in, even so. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Molly. That was just a terrific reading. And let me see if I can get Tommye back here on the stage. There we go now.
Hey,
Hey!
Excellent.
Hey, you both guys really killed it. That was really a wonderful reading. And we have a couple of questions from our Crowdcast audience here. So let me go and this is one that goes to both of you. So this is from Susan Oki, who asks the two of you, you both write so movingly about the darkest realities in the news. I am curious about whether these poems start to come into being when the news is happening or much later. So let's start with Molly.
Well, let me think about that. I think for the most part, for me, it's much later. Most of the poems that I've written and most of the poems in both books are things that I at first really resisted writing. Seems to be part of my process. And were things that kind of nagged at me over a period of time before I really found the language for them. I will say that Interior, which I read tonight, was an exception to that. And I actually did start jotting down lines and scraps of language that night as I stood in my kitchen cleaning the green beans for dinner. And that's also, although I do feel like my poems are written from lived experience, typically they are not like ripped from the headlines of my life. You know, everything that happens in the book didn't necessarily happen in my life, but for that poem, it did happen, kind of just the way the poem lays it out.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Tommye?
Yeah, for me, I am not a poet of urgency. I don't believe in, I'm serious. I don't believe in, for me, I don't believe in writing poems as things are happening. I can't. For me, this book, Fantasia for the Man in Blue, I've been writing, there's a poem in here that I wrote in 2006. So, you know, so I work glacially. Usually when, I don't want to say this. Usually when there's like news stories that like pop up, it feels, how do I want to say this? It can feel like a false gesture in my work, trying to grapple with it without knowing all the answers to what's going on with something. Because typically I'm full of a lot of questions. However, the title poem in my book, Fantasia for the Man in Blue, is probably the most recent. Yeah, it's between that one and My God, Look Him Clean, which is written after the cover painting. But yeah, because that event happened maybe 3 years ago. But like Molly said, I don't typically write towards the truth. I don't try and get like, oh, this is what happened, because I'm not a journalist. But I am interested in getting at the truth of an experience. I'm also a poet, right? Which means I'm an artist. So I'm always thinking about how to make this. If I am writing about trauma, how can I make this trauma art, not necessarily to make it medicinal, to make it easy to be digested, because I'm really not interested in that. But I am interested in finding a kind of beauty in the thing that terrifies us. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. It has been a wonderful reading, and a lot of you look in the chat. You'll see a whole lot of discussion over there, and it's really been wonderful. Everybody is really grateful for it. I'm going to let you guys go, and then I'm going to close down. But again, thanks from the WordWorks, thanks from Cafe Muse, and thanks from everybody who's enjoyed this wonderful reading to the two of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Okay. Whew. So please come back and join us on Monday, July 6, 2020, when we're going to feature poets Tracy Brimhall and Bergie Zinhauser. And also come back for our next Poets versus the Pandemic on Wednesday, June 10, 2020. And we're going to be featuring Francesco Aragon and a night of Latinx poetry. So good night from Cafe Muse and from Renee and from the whole and Susan and Leah, Karen, everybody on the Cafe Muse team. We want to thank our poets one more time, Tommye Blount and Molly Spencer, and to our WordWorks leader, Karen Alanier. And for all of you for coming out tonight, I want to say thank you and stay safe.